On my 38th birthday, all I wished for was a peaceful day. Instead, my sister slammed my face into my cake as a joke. I heard a crack in my neck, but the laughter around me said I was overreacting. Hours later, our doctor studied my X-ray and went silent. He didn't just see a new injury. He saw old fractures, evidence of harm that went back years. In that moment, a lifetime of sibling rivalry was exposed for what it truly was. This is the story of how a single cruel act unraveled a family's deepest secrets, exposed a pattern of betrayal, and led to a shocking discovery that changed everything. My name is Elaine Collins. I'm 38 years old, and I spent most of those years trying to make myself smaller, quieter, less of a target. I never thought my life would take this turn. Not at this age, not over something as silly as a birthday cake. But sometimes the universe uses the strangest, most painful tools to show you the truth you've been refusing to see. Before I dive deeper into this story, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and share it. Your support truly helps me bring more emotional and unforgettable stories to life. I always love hearing from you, so tell me in the comments, what's a small moment from your own life that later turned out to be a major turning point? Your words and reactions inspire me more than you can imagine. And when we finally reach the end, don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10. I read every single one and it means a lot to me. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. The house in Brighton, Maine was quiet that evening. A soft, late fall quiet that settles into the bones of old New England homes. It was my 38th birthday. Not a milestone, not a celebration year. Just 38. An age where you stop expecting grand gestures, where peace feels like a better gift than any wrapped present. I had hoped, foolishly perhaps, for a small, quiet moment of recognition. A sign that maybe, just maybe, my sister Marissa had grown past the sharp edges she'd carried since we were kids. My mother, Eleanor, had baked the cake herself. A simple vanilla sponge with soft white buttercream frosting. It glowed under the light of the single candle she'd insisted on. Traditions, she said, are what hold a family together. The air was warm with the scent of sugar and brewing coffee. My stepfather, Robert, was adjusting his phone, trying to get a good angle. Marissa stood just behind my right shoulder. I could feel her presence like a static charge in the air. Everyone sang. Their voices, a little off-key, filled the cozy dining room. My mother's eyes were soft and a little sad, the way they often were when she looked at me. Robert smiled his dutiful smile. And Marissa? Marissa's voice was the loudest, the brightest, a performance of perfect sisterly joy. I looked at the candle flame, a tiny trembling star in the dim room. I leaned forward, the wood of the chair creaking beneath me. I closed my eyes. The wish that formed in my mind was so small, so pathetic, it almost made me cry right then. Let today be gentle. Just let it be gentle. I took a deep breath to blow out the candle. I never got the chance. The force came from my right side, sudden and absolute. It wasn't a playful shove. It was a violent, two-handed lunge that buried my entire face, my head, deep into the soft body of the cake. The plate skidded across the table. My neck snapped back with a sickening jolt. And then came the sound. A sharp, wet crack deep inside my skull, followed immediately by a high-pitched ringing that swallowed the world. For a second, there was nothing but that sound and the darkness, the cloying, suffocating smell of vanilla and fat. I couldn't breathe. Frosting clogged my nose, my mouth. Crumbs scratched my eyes. Then the laughter. It erupted around Marissa. Robert's gruff chuckle. My mother's nervous, tittering giggle. And Marissa's own laugh. A sparkling, triumphant sound. Got you, she crowed, her voice cutting through the ringing. Oh, lighten up, Elaine. It's a birthday tradition. I pushed myself back, my hands slipping on the tablecloth. I was blind, gasping, cake clinging to my eyelashes, my hair, my sweater. I tried to laugh with them, to play my part in the joke. A sound croaked out of my throat, but it died before it reached the air. The room wasn't just tilted, it was spinning. A hot, sharp pain was drilling from the base of my skull up into my temples. My mother gasped, finally seeing past the mess to my face. Oh honey, your neck. It's just sibling fun, Ellie, Robert muttered, already wiping frosting from the table with a napkin. We did worse as kids. She's fine. But I wasn't fine. The ringing was a siren now. Nausea rolled in my stomach. The pain in my neck was a live wire. I tried to stand to go clean up, but my legs were water. I had to brace myself on the chair. Marissa. I mumbled, my words thick with cake. That really hurt. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes, those bright blue eyes I'd known all my life, went flat and cold for just a fraction of a second. Don't be so dramatic. You're always so dramatic. You ruined the cake, by the way. That was the moment. The moment the floor didn't just tilt, but fell away entirely. Something deep, ancient and knowing uncoiled inside me. This wasn't fun. This wasn't a joke gone wrong. This was something else. And I had felt this feeling before 1,000 times, and every single time I had packed it away, labeled it overreaction. The next few hours were a blur of muffled pain and humiliation. My mother helped me to the bathroom, her hands fluttering, her voice a stream of apologies. For the mess, for Marissa's high spirits, for the ruined evening. I cleaned the cake from my face, watching the white swirls stain the porcelain pink. In the mirror I looked pale, my eyes wide with something that wasn't just shock, but a dawning, terrifying recognition. The pain didn't subside. It intensified. A relentless, grinding ache that made it impossible to turn my head. Every heartbeat pulsed in my skull. Robert finally, reluctantly, agreed to drive me to the emergency clinic in Portland. The car ride was silent except for the radio. He didn't ask how I was. He just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, as if I'd personally inconvenienced him. The Portland Emergency Clinic was a sterile, fluorescent-lit space of quiet beeps and hushed voices. The triage nurse had a kind face. When I whispered what happened, my sister pushed my face into my birthday cake. Her professional smile flickered. She didn't say anything. She just handed me an ice pack and ordered a cervical spine X-ray. The waiting was a strange, suspended state. I sat in a curtained bay, the thin fabric doing nothing to block the sounds of someone vomiting, a baby crying. I replayed the moment over and over. The candlelight, the wish, the force of her hands, the crack, her laugh. Each time the cold feeling in my stomach grew. Then Dr. Rowan Hale walked in. He was tall, with graying hair and tired eyes that held a deep, attentive stillness. He moved quietly. He introduced himself, his voice low and calm. He asked me to describe what happened. I gave him the shorthand, the sanitized version. A silly accident. A birthday prank. My sister shoved me into the cake. He listened, nodding slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. He examined my neck, his fingers probing gently. You have significant muscle spasms here, he said. And you're guarding the movement. This isn't minor. He left to review the X-rays. Time stretched. The ice pack melted, soaking the front of my shirt. I stared at a speck on the wall. When Dr. Hale returned, he was alone. He held a large white envelope. His demeanor had changed. The professional calm was still there, but underneath it was a new tension, a gravity that made the air in the small room feel heavier. He didn't sit. He stood by the bed, looking at me not just as a patient, but as a person in the middle of a profound mystery. He slid the X-ray film onto the lightbox on the wall and flicked it on. There it was. The ghostly gray and white architecture of my own spine. The curve of my skull. To my untrained eye, it looked like a weird, abstract photo. Dr. Hale was silent for a long time, his gaze fixed on the image. The routine sounds of the ER outside our curtain seemed to fade away, replaced by this thick, waiting silence. He pointed to a spot near the base of my skull. See this area here? This is the fresh injury, the violent hyperextension from the impact. It's a significant ligament strain. You'll need a collar, physical therapy. I nodded, waiting for the but. There was a but. I could feel it in the way he was breathing, in the careful way he chose his next words. He then moved his finger down, tracing the line of my vertebrae. This is what concerns me, Elaine. His voice dropped, became even softer. Yet every word was crystal clear. Here. And here. These are old fractures. Well healed, but clear as day on the film. I stared. Old fractures? I had never broken my neck. I had never been in a major accident. Are you sure? My voice was a whisper. I'm certain, he said. He turned from the lightbox to look at me fully. His expression was one of profound professional seriousness mixed with something else, a kind of heartbreaking empathy. These injuries are not new. They are years old. And their pattern. He paused, choosing his next words with immense care. Their pattern is consistent with repeated, significant physical force. Not a fall. Not a one-time accident. The world shrunk to the light of that X-ray, to the gentle, unyielding gaze of this stranger. "Elaine," Dr. Rowan Hale asked, his voice so gentle it was almost a prayer. "Who did this to you?" The question hung in the air. It wasn't an accusation. It was a key turning in a lock I didn't even know existed. "Who did this to you?" My mind went blank, then flooded. Not with answers but with sensations. A hard shove from behind on the stairs at age 12, tumbling down 5 steps, my mother calling it clumsiness. A playful kick to my chair legs in the cafeteria at 15, sending me sprawling, my book scattering, Marissa's laughter ringing in my ears as she helped me up. A wrestling match when I was 20, where she twisted my arm behind my back until I cried out, and she let go smiling, saying I was too weak. 1,000 small sharp pains. A lifetime of bruises I explained away. A history of being accident-prone. I opened my mouth. I wanted to say no one. It was me. I'm clumsy. The old script worn smooth from decades of use. But looking at Dr. Hale, at the hard evidence of my own skeleton betraying the lie, the words turned to ash. I don't know. I stammered, the heat of shame burning my cheeks. I mean, my sister, we roughhoused as kids, but it was just playing. He didn't look away. He didn't accept the answer. He gave a slow single nod, a decision made. "I need you to wait here," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "This requires a formal report. It's procedure." He stepped out. The curtain swished closed. I was alone with the image of my broken, mended, broken again spine. The ringing in my ears was gone, replaced by a roaring silence. The curtain opened again a few minutes later. Dr. Hale returned, and with him were 2 uniformed police officers, a man and a woman, their faces set in neutral, professional expressions. Dr. Hale stood between my bed and the officers, a quiet, solid barrier. "Elaine, these officers need to speak with you. What's shown on these X-rays indicates a pattern of potential long-term physical harm. This isn't about a birthday cake anymore." The female officer stepped forward, her voice kind but firm. "Miss Collins, can you tell us what happened tonight?" And so, in a trembling voice covered in dried cake, with the ghost of my own abused skeleton glowing on the wall behind me, I began to speak. I told them about the candle, the wish, the hands on my head, the crack. And as I spoke, the dam inside me, the one that had held back a lifetime of normalized pain, began to splinter. The words started to come, not just about tonight, but about the shoves, the kicks, the jokes that left me breathless and humiliated. I spoke of the laughter that always followed, the laughter that framed her cruelty as my own failure to take a joke. I was crying now, hot silent tears cutting tracks through the last bits of frosting on my cheeks. I was embarrassed, exposed, dizzy with the vertigo of a collapsing reality. My sister hadn't just been mean. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had been hurting me, truly hurting me for years. And I, the eternal peacekeeper, the apologizer, the one who made herself small, had called it love. I had called it family. The officers listened. They didn't interrupt. They didn't tell me it was just sibling rivalry. They took notes, their pens scratching against pads, the sound absurdly loud in the quiet space. The female officer, Officer Blake, had eyes that held mine without pity, but with a clear, solid understanding. She saw the truth in the X-ray, and now she was hearing it in my broken, halting words. When I finished, trailing off into shaky silence, she asked, "And these earlier incidents you're remembering, would you be willing to give a formal statement about them?" A formal statement. Against Marissa. The words were tectonic plates shifting in my mind. To say it out loud to the police was to make it real in a way it had never been before. It was to take the private, accepted ache of my life and hold it up to the light of the law. I looked at Dr. Hale. He stood with his arms crossed, a silent sentinel. He gave me the smallest, almost imperceptible nod. It wasn't a push. It was permission. Permission to choose myself. "Yes," I heard myself say. The word was quiet, but it didn't tremble. "Yes, I will." Officer Blake explained the process. They would file a report. A detective might contact me. They would also need to speak with Marissa. The thought of that, of police showing up at my mother's warm, cake-scented house, sent a bolt of pure childish fear through me. I was 38, and I was terrified of my sister's anger, of the chaos it would unleash. Robert was called from the waiting room. His face, when he entered the curtained bay and saw the officers, went from impatient to stormy. "What's all this?" he demanded, his voice too loud for the small space. "It was a birthday prank, for God's sake. Elaine, are you causing this drama?" Officer Blake stepped forward, her posture shifting subtly into one of authority. "Sir, we're following protocol based on medical evidence. This is a bit more serious than a prank." "Medical evidence?" Robert scoffed, but his eyes flicked to the X-ray on the lightbox, a flicker of uncertainty breaking through his bluster. Dr. Hale spoke then, his voice a calm, clinical blade cutting through Robert's heat. "The X-ray shows older, healed cervical fractures, Mr. Sullivan. Injuries consistent with repeated trauma. Not a single accident. The event tonight caused a new acute injury. We are legally obligated to report suspected patterns of non-accidental harm." The phrase hung in the air. Non-accidental harm. It wasn't roughhousing. It wasn't being dramatic. It was a medical and legal term. It had weight. Robert's mouth opened, then closed. He looked from the X-ray to me, sitting small and crumpled on the bed, in my cake-stained clothes. For a brief second I saw not anger, but a bewildered fear in his eyes. He was a man who solved problems by ignoring them, and now a problem he'd ignored for decades was staring him in the face, backed by the police and a doctor. He didn't say another word. He just turned and walked out, the curtain swinging violently behind him. They fitted me with a stiff, white cervical collar. The feeling of it, cradling my throbbing neck, was strangely comforting. It was an external proof of the internal damage. Dr. Hale gave me instructions, a prescription for pain medication, and a referral for a specialized orthopedist. As he handed me the paperwork, he paused. "The officers will do their job, Elaine. But you have a job to do now, too. Your job is to heal. And not just from this." He tapped the collar. "From all of it." My mother picked me up. She was pale, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. The ride home was a long, cold tunnel of silence. Finally, as we turned onto our street, she whispered, "They called. The police. They said they're coming to talk to Marissa tomorrow." "I know, Mom." "Elaine, are you sure? I mean, Marissa loves you. She's just spirited. She doesn't know her own strength." There it was. The old refrain. The melody of my life. She doesn't know her own strength. I looked out the window at the dark sleeping houses. She knew enough to put both hands on my head and push with all her weight, Mom. She's 35. She knows. My mother started to cry soft, helpless sobs. I just wanted a nice family. I just wanted everyone to get along. The house was dark when we entered, but not silent. The tension was a physical presence, thick and choking. Robert was in the living room, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, staring at the blank TV. He didn't look at us. Marissa was waiting at the top of the stairs. She had changed into silk pajamas, her face clean and glowing from her skincare routine. She looked like a queen surveying a minor disturbance in her kingdom. "So," she said, her voice cool and sharp, "the prodigal victim returns. What was the diagnosis, Elaine?" "Terminal melodrama." I stood at the bottom of the stairs, the collar making it hard to look up at her. I felt like a child again. But the collar was also armor. "They found old breaks in my neck, Marissa. From before. The doctor said it's from repeated injuries." For a fraction of a second, her perfect mask slipped. I saw it. Not guilt, not remorse, but a flash of pure feral panic. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a sneer. "Oh, please. You probably got those from one of your many clumsy falls. You've always been a walking disaster. Now you're trying to blame me? That's low, even for you. The police are coming to talk to you tomorrow," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "They have the X-rays." Her eyes widened. The panic was back, but now it was mixed with a boiling, incredulous rage. "You called the police on me? Over a cake? Are you insane?" She took a step down, her hand gripping the banister. "You're going to ruin this family over your pathetic need for attention. Marissa, enough." My mother's voice was a wail from behind me. "Just enough. Can't you see she's hurt?" "She's always hurt," Marissa screamed, the sound raw and ugly in the quiet house. "She's a professional victim. And you," she jabbed a finger at our mother, "you always fall for it. You always baby her. What about me? What about what I need? And there it was. The core of it, exposed not in a therapist's office, but on the staircase of our childhood home, in the middle of the night. It wasn't just cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was jealousy. A deep, rotting, all-consuming jealousy that had festered for so long it had twisted into this. I saw my mother's face crumple, finally understanding a truth she'd spent a lifetime avoiding. Robert finally spoke from the living room archway, his voice slurry with drink. You need to drop this, Elaine. You're tearing this family apart for nothing. You'll regret it. I looked at him, the man who had married my mother when I was 10, who had always treated me with a polite, distant tolerance, who had always showered Marissa with an easier, brighter affection. I saw the resentment now, not hidden but laid bare. I was a problem. I was a reminder of a life before him. I was the quiet, complicated one. Marissa was the easy, sparkling one. And he had chosen long ago which side he was on. I'm not dropping it, I said, the words leaving my lips with a finality that surprised even me. I turned away from all of them, from Marissa's fury, from my mother's devastation, from Robert's resentment. I walked slowly, carefully up the stairs past my sister. She didn't move to block me. She just stared at me as if I were a stranger, a dangerous animal she no longer recognized. In my old room, the room that still had floral wallpaper from my teens, I sank onto the bed. The silence was absolute. The collar pressed against my skin. I was alone, but for the first time the aloneness didn't feel like loneliness. Felt like a clearing. A space where the air was mine to breathe. The next day was a quiet earthquake. 2 detectives came, not uniformed officers. They were polite, solemn. They spoke with Marissa in the living room for over an hour. I stayed in my room, but I could hear the low murmur of voices, and once the sharp, tearful rise of Marissa's voice saying, "It was a joke. She's my sister. I love her." After they left, the house descended into a cold war. Marissa alternated between icy silence and explosive bouts of rage directed at everyone. My mother floated through the rooms like a ghost, her eyes red-rimmed. Robert avoided me entirely. A week later, I went for my follow-up with the orthopedist Dr. Hale had recommended. More scans, more tests. The orthopedist was focused, thorough. He confirmed the acute strain and the old fractures. He outlined a long course of physical therapy. You'll get most of your mobility back, he said, but you'll always need to be careful. The area is compromised. It was as I was leaving, my folder of paperwork in hand, that I saw Dr. Hale in the hallway. He was speaking with another doctor, but he caught my eye and excused himself. "Elaine," he said, walking over. "How are you holding up?" "I've been better," I said, managing a weak smile, gesturing to the collar. He nodded. "The family fallout?" "Like a neutron bomb," I admitted. "Everything's destroyed, but the house is still standing." He smiled a little at that, but his eyes were serious. "I was actually hoping to see you. Your orthopedist sent your full imaging workup to me for consult. There's something else." My heart, which had begun to settle into a dull, weary rhythm, gave a painful thud. "Something else? Not related to the trauma," he said quickly, seeing my fear. "A finding on the deeper tissue scan. Frankly, it's a fortunate find. May I?" He gestured to a small, empty consultation room nearby. We sat. He pulled out a fresh film, putting it on another light box. This one showed not bone but softer, blurrier shapes. He pointed to a small, shadowy area at the base of my throat, near my collarbone. "See this nodule here? On your thyroid. Its characteristics, they're suspicious. We never would have been looking at this area with such detail if not for the trauma workup. You need a biopsy, Elaine. As soon as possible." The room tilted again, but in a completely new direction. A nodule. Suspicious. Biopsy. The words were cold, clinical marbles dropping into the warm soup of my family drama. "Is it cancer?" The word felt strange in my mouth. "We don't know. That's what the biopsy will tell us. But the fact that we found it now, when it's small and likely very treatable, is..." He paused, searching for the right word. "It's significant." I stared at the gray shadow on the film. A secret hidden inside me, unrelated to Marissa's violence, yet exposed because of it. A life potentially threatened, and a life potentially saved by the same brutal act. In trying to humiliate me, I said slowly, the realization dawning with an awful crystalline clarity. She might have actually saved my life. Dr. Hale met my gaze. The body keeps score in strange ways, Elaine. Sometimes the ledger is written in injuries. Sometimes it's written in warnings we almost missed. I left the hospital that day with two realities grafted onto my soul. One, my sister's lifelong abuse was now a legal, medical, and shattered family fact. Two, I might have a disease growing inside me, a silent thief, discovered only because she tried to break me. The irony was so vast, so profound, it was neither funny nor tragic. It was simply the truth. And for the first time, standing in the hospital parking lot with the cold wind biting my cheeks, I understood that revenge, the kind I'd fantasized about in weak moments, was an empty, small thing. It wasn't my story. My story was the one happening right now. The story of a woman in a white collar, holding a biopsy requisition, standing at the precipice of two wars. One for justice and one for her very life. And I knew, with a certainty that felt like the first solid ground I'd stood on in years, that I intended to win them both. The biopsy was scheduled for 10 days later. 10 days that stretched like a lifetime. The cervical collar was a constant, stiff reminder of the physical betrayal, and the pending procedure was a shadow over the future. But a strange thing happened in that suspended space. The family chaos, which had once consumed all the oxygen in my world, began to recede, like a noisy storm moving out to sea. It was still there, rumbling on the horizon, but I was no longer standing in the downpour. My focus narrowed, became surgical. I had two missions: heal my neck and face whatever was growing inside me. The petty wars, the hissed accusations in the hallway, the slamming doors, they became background noise. I was living in my mother's house, but I had emotionally moved out. I started physical therapy. The sessions were painful, humbling. My therapist, a woman named Anna with impossibly strong hands and a calm voice, taught me how to reconnect with muscles that had been locked in a protective spasm for weeks. As she worked, she'd ask gentle questions. What do you do for work, Elaine? Do you have any hobbies? Basic human questions that no one in my family had asked me in years. They weren't asking about my pain, my drama, my role. They were asking about me. Answering them felt like rediscovering a forgotten language. I told her I was a freelance graphic designer, that I loved gardening, but hadn't had a plot of my own since I moved back home to help my mother after a surgery 3 years ago, that I liked the quiet of early mornings. Saying these things aloud, in a bright room smelling of antiseptic and effort, made them feel real again. Made me feel real. At home I began to pack. Not frantically but methodically. Boxes from the grocery store, filled with books, with the few pieces of art I owned, with my clothes. I found an apartment. It was a small, sunny one-bedroom in Portland, not far from the clinic. The landlord was an older woman who showed me the view of a shared backyard garden. It needs love, she said, but it gets good light. I put down the deposit with money I'd been saving for a rainy day. It was, I realized, a monsoon. The day before my biopsy, Marissa confronted me. I was in the kitchen making tea. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed. She looked tired. The perfect, glossy armor was chipped. The police investigation was a slow, grinding process. They had interviewed friends, old neighbors. The perfect narrative of our happy family was cracking under official scrutiny. You're really leaving, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. Because of all this? You're going to destroy everything and then just walk away. I turned to face her, the kettle hissing softly on the stove behind me. The collar forced me to move my whole body, making the gesture feel deliberate, solid. You destroyed it, Marissa. A long time ago. I'm just finally choosing not to live in the wreckage. Her face twisted. You think you're so strong now, don't you? With your little neck brace and your police reports. You always were weak. You needed me to make you interesting. The old barb. It didn't stick this time. It glanced off the new, hard-won shell I was growing. I don't need you at all, I said, my voice quiet. That's the point. I never did. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. My indifference was a weapon she had no defense against. Her rage was built to combat my tears, my pleas, my attempts to placate. It couldn't touch my silence, my steady gaze. I might have cancer, I said then, the words flat and simple. All the color drained from her face. The anger evaporated. leaving behind a hollow, shocked confusion. What? The scan. The one they did because you slammed my head into the cake. They found a tumor on my thyroid. I find out tomorrow if it's cancerous. For a long moment she just stared. I saw a carousel of emotions spin behind her eyes. Disbelief, a flicker of horror, and then, shamefully, a spark of that old competitive jealousy, as if even in this I was stealing focus. But finally, it settled on a kind of bewildered fear. The foundation of her world, the foundation where she was the strong one, the vibrant one, and I was the fragile, pathetic one, was collapsing into rubble. If I was truly seriously ill, her whole narrative crumbled. "You're lying," she whispered, but there was no force behind it. "I don't care if you believe me," I said, and I meant it. I poured the hot water into my cup. The tea bloomed, a cloud of amber in the clear water. "It doesn't change the facts." I took my tea and walked past her up to my room. She didn't move from the doorway. The biopsy was a strange, cold affair. Lying on a table, my neck extended, a local numbing the area. I felt pressure, a vague pulling, the sound of medical instruments. Dr. Hale had arranged for the best endocrinologist, Dr. Chun, to perform it. Her hands were steady, her voice a calm monologue explaining each step. I focused on a crack in the ceiling tile, thinking not of the needle in my neck, but of that small garden behind my new apartment. What would I plant first? The wait for results was 72 hours. I moved into my apartment during those 72 hours. My mother helped me, her face a mask of quiet sorrow. We didn't speak much. We carried boxes, arranged furniture. When we were done, she stood in the middle of the empty living room and cried. Not the helpless sobs from before, but a deep grieving weep. "I failed you," she said, the words ripped from her. "All those times. I saw it. I saw her be cruel. And I told myself it was just sisters. I told myself you were too sensitive. I told myself if I made a fuss, I'd lose her. I was so afraid of her anger that I let her hurt you. I am so sorry, Elaine. I am so sorry." It was the acknowledgement I had waited a lifetime for. I didn't feel triumph. I felt a vast, weary sadness. I walked over and put my arms around her. She felt small and frail in my embrace. "I forgive you, Mom," I whispered. And I did. Not because what she did was okay, but because her burden of guilt was hers to carry, and I refused to carry it for her anymore. My own load was heavy enough. The call came on a Thursday morning. I was sitting on the floor of my new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, a single ray of sun warming the bare wood. "Elaine, it's Dr. Chun. I have your results." I held my breath. The world narrowed to the phone pressed against my ear. "The nodule is malignant. It's papillary thyroid carcinoma. Cancer." The word was real now. It had a name. It was inside me. "But," she continued, her voice firm, positive, "it's stage 1. Extremely localized. Small. It's the best possible scenario we could have hoped for. The fact that we found it this early because of that scan is a tremendous piece of luck. The treatment is straightforward. We remove the thyroid and with it the cancer. The prognosis is excellent." I exhaled, a shuddering breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Luck. Excellent prognosis." The words floated around the word carcinoma, softening its edges. I had cancer, but I was going to be okay. I was going to be okay because my sister, in an act of pure malice, had led a doctor to find it. The irony was now complete. It was a full, terrible, miraculous circle. The surgery was scheduled for a month later. In that month, my life became a series of pre-op appointments, blood tests, and quiet preparations. I told my mother. She wept again, but this time with a frantic, determined energy. She wanted to help, to cook, to drive me. I let her. It was a new way for us to be together. Not around Marissa's drama, but around my real, tangible need. I did not tell Marissa. My mother must have, because a week before the surgery, a letter arrived. Not an email. A handwritten letter on heavy, expensive stationery. "Elaine, Mom told me about your diagnosis. I don't know what to say. I've been thinking a lot. About the cake. About the police. About what the doctor saw. I never meant to hurt you. Not really. That's what I told myself. It was just how we were. You were always so good, so quiet. It made me so angry. I felt like I had to be loud just to be seen next to you. I felt like I had to push you down to feel like I was standing up. I see now that it wasn't a game. I see the x-rays. I hear the words the police use. I understand what I did. I am sorry. For the cake. For all of it. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I see it now. Marissa. I read it once. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in a box marked old papers. The box where I kept tax returns and expired warranties. It was an apology, yes, but it was also still about her. Her anger, her feelings, her realization. It was a start, perhaps, but it came far too late to change anything. My healing was no longer contingent on her remorse. My justice was not in her hands. It was in the hands of the law, and more importantly, in my own hands as I built a new life. The surgery happened. It was a success. The recovery was uncomfortable, but straightforward. I had a new, small scar at the base of my throat, a companion to the memory of the cervical collar. Dr. Hale stopped by my hospital room after the procedure. "You're cancer-free, Elaine," he said, a genuine smile on his tired face. "You get to live your life now, the one you're choosing." A month after my surgery, the legal process reached its conclusion. Marissa was charged with misdemeanor assault for the birthday incident. But the historical evidence, the pattern documented from my statement and the x-rays, allowed for a stronger restraining order and mandated anger management counseling. It wasn't a dramatic prison sentence, but it was a consequence. A public, legal, undeniable mark on her perfect record. It was accountability. The day the order was finalized, I planted my first seeds in the backyard garden. Lettuce, radishes, simple, quick-growing things. I felt the sun on my back, the soft dirt under my nails. My body was healing both from the violence and from the surgery. The scar on my neck was tender, but it was just a scar. It would fade. I thought about the last year. The crack of my own bones. The ghostly light of an x-ray. The kind eyes of a doctor who saw what others refused to. The cold fear of a diagnosis. The warmth of a new sun in a new window. Revenge would have been making her suffer as I had suffered. But that would have kept me chained to her, to the past. Instead, I had done something far more powerful. I had walked away. I had listened to the truth my body had been screaming for decades. I had faced a silent killer and defeated it. I had built a quiet, peaceful life of my own choosing. My sister slammed my face into a cake to make me small, to make me a punchline. But she was the one who ended up exposed. And I was the one who ended up free. Thank you for listening till the very end. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. And don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10 in the comments. Your words and reactions inspire me more than you can imagine.